Well, good afternoon or evening, everyone. We are at the finale of the COVID-19 Life Coach series, and I'm so grateful, honored to be with you today, to have Cara Stevens here with us, the author of Heal Your Relationship with Money. She's also the founder of the Frugal, you can't even see it, the Frugal Feminista movement. And I thought, wow, we were supposed to do this 2 weeks ago, right? But I believe in divine timing. I feel like the world, well, we know the world needs healing now more than ever. And for us to have Cara on the show or on the webinar today is extra meaningful to me. Cara, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Yes. I will say I was actually introduced to your book through a financial mastery masterclass. So we also have another person in common. Her name is Alicia Holmes. And she understands exactly what you're doing in that money and your mindset, the emotional aspect of it, they go hand in hand. So as much as she wants to teach us about stocks and things like that, she understood there was a foundational piece that needed to be worked on first. So that's how we learned about your book. And actually some of our ladies are on here today that are part of this community. Yes. I would love for you to just share, I guess, initially a little bit about your journey. Because I read you had at one point, it wasn't that long ago, only 7 years ago, you were in about $65,000 in debt.
Yeah. So that was a combination of student loan debt and credit card debt. And the journey was actually like in, I guess, several parts. But the last part of it was $40,000 that I was able to repay in 2 years. And that was because I had just had experiences of just being in debt, getting out of it, just kind of this up and down yo-yo effect of, man, I got it together. And then you kind of get back into your old habits, your old ways of thinking. And then you come to a moment where you're like, I don't want to do this again. I want to learn this lesson so I can move on with my life. So getting to that 40K, I had taken the experiences of success that I had with getting rid of debt at different times and just maximized it and multiplied it, and also tried to create a plan that would help me understand when I was on the road to self-sabotage, when I was on the road to reverting to previous ways of thinking, giving myself a couple of things: grace, of course, but then 2, an action plan on how to deal with those challenges when they come up. Because there's always going to be challenges when you have a big goal. And I think sometimes when people share their stories, they like to go from like a very straight line. I was in debt, and I was out of debt, and that's it. But that's not often the true story, especially when it comes to internal growth that you have to do. It's like a couple things. It's like trying to push over, think of a vending machine. You just can't push the vending machine over in one push. It goes back and forth until you get the momentum to finally push it. And I think I like to talk about that because it's a recursive process. Sometimes you will fall into poor habits, but it's your rebound that often changes. It's not, you don't stay stuck as long as you might have before, because you're strengthening your resilience muscle, you're strengthening your money management skills, and you're strengthening all the other areas of your life where you're finding success. And that gives you the motivation and also the actual evidence to prove that you're going in the right direction. So if you want to like tactical things that I did, there were so many things that I did, but some were hustling. A lot of them were hustling, but a lot of them were a lot more structural, like getting a new job, applying for a new job, like actually putting my degree to use and getting more money. And at that time, actually, there was some opposition to me asking for more money. So even figuring out how to negotiate that space that would actually increase my pay by 30 or 40%. You know, as a young Black woman, some people think that you should just be happy to have a job. And so those strategies, I think, have carried me even further in life as I begin to work for myself and try to negotiate to get myself to the highest rate or, negotiation fee as early as possible in the relationship. So that's one thing. But in addition to just basically, so I increased my income as a structure. But then the other thing that I did was I decreased my expenses by, there's so many different things that I did. And for some of you, this may not be a viable thing because, you may be having kids, or you may just not want to do these things. But I was a Cinderella character at birthday parties for children. I was a Mickey Mouse character. My girlfriend and I, when we were teachers, she was the clown, and I was the Mickey Mouse character, and I had to dance. And so we became one of those other things. You found people who were in the struggle with you. She was trying to save for a home. I was trying to get out of debt. So we were very much supporting each other on side hustles, extra things you can do as a teacher to get overtime. There was this one job I took that I only worked 10 minutes every morning, but a couple of mornings, as a classroom teacher, 20 mornings a month adds up when you get extra overtime. So there was no job that was too small for me. My ego did not get in the way. No matter how many degrees I had no problems putting on a Mickey Mouse costume and like doing a little dance, and making a little girl's birthday happy, but also staying really focused. And I think the other big piece is too, like I said, about the ego, because at that time I was in my 20s or 30s, and at that time people might have thought you were a loser because you made these concessions. You weren't living the Sex and the City life. Yeah, actually, one of my friends said, "Are you okay? Are you depressed?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm in debt. I'm just trying to get out of this debt." And the funny thing is that now, they come back and ask, "Well, what were some of your strategies?" So sometimes you have to block out the naysayers because you know what your dream is. And so, so from dealing with your ego and feeling ashamed of maybe some of the things you have to say no to, and understand the importance of delayed gratification, increasing your income. And I also did, like, the side hustles included too, like having an Amazon bookstore online. So I would take old books. Actually, I was a flea market security for a friend of mine. So I used to watch his table to make sure no one stole anything. And so he would pay me in two ways. He would pay me a portion of what he earned for the day, but he also paid me in books where I could take those books and sell them.
Barter, right? People sometimes sleep on that. Barter is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So, so what I would do is I would live off of the money that I would make extra. And I would put the money towards the debt and then kind of use my income to do what I have to do. But each of those monies or streams of side hustle had a place to go towards the debt. And sometimes I would I would organize, and other things like too, in terms of, I don't know how much you're going to go into that, but yeah, so my story is just one of which I had to really get my mindset, my emotions around how I felt I should be perceived versus what I needed to do. So sometimes there's a big disconnect. Well, I'm not the kind of woman that can do this and that because I am. Do you know who I am? Right. And I'm thinking, your dad doesn't care who you are. And you shouldn't either when you're trying to get out of it. So I think that was one of the big things. And just part of my journey of just being like, well, what's your goal? And if your mindset is an obstacle towards it, then it's okay to acknowledge that and then see where you can grow in that way.
That's what I heard. So we're not going to say that things aren't going to come up because, first of all, you're doing something new. What do you want to do? We want to stay safe. We want to keep things as they are. That's what your ego wants to do.
Right.
So once you start doing something new, that's when the survival mechanism kicks in, right? Yeah. But as long as you can acknowledge that, meet yourself where you're at, and then keep going, that's how you'll keep moving forward. So that's what I heard. I also heard you got confirmation. Because I had done it before in smaller amounts, I can do it again with these bigger amounts. I also, I felt like when I went through the 28-day process, which we're all going to learn about, you brought up something also very important in that, where are you making your decisions from? So is it external, what people are going to think of me, or is it internal, what am I committed to?
Right.
Which is bigger than everything else. So I got so much out of that initial story right there. But let's dive in. We're still on the first slide. This happens all the time. Yeah. So jump to the next slide. So this is taken straight from the book. right? So this is really how we're going to structure our webinar today. We're going to unpack our financial past. We're going to silence the money noise, develop financial intimacy. Now, I just want to stop here for 1 second, because when we first had our initial conversation, right? There's several financial gurus in the space. You've got Ken Honda. His philosophy is all around happy money, right? You've got Barbara Stanley, who talks about treating your money with the same reverence as God, really. That's kind of her take on it. Now, when I asked you what kind of differentiated you or what your philosophy was around what you're trying to create in the money space, I loved what you had to say. And it was along the lines of intimacy. Could you share that with everyone? And I think that's probably why you also really appeal to women, specifically women of color, in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that when you hear the word intimacy, is usually with a partner, another human being, and it's a level of tenderness, a level of trust, a level of openness that you share, and it's almost this unconditional support or this commitment to learning and growing despite the challenges. And I think we look for intimacy in other people, which is a good thing, but sometimes we have to do that with ourselves and the things that support our beings. And one of those things is money. I mean, money permeates so many aspects of our lives. For a lot of us, it defines a lot of how we feel about ourselves. So part of developing any type of healthy relationship begins with the relationship you have with the things that are somehow even personified. Like there's so many things that we do for money. We kill for money, we pray for money, like other things. We think about money as if it's a person. And for all intents and purposes, it could be a person. Do you know what I mean? Because it's in every relationship that we have,
Right.
It ruins others, it strengthens others, it confuses others. And these are experiences that I've had myself, that even at the end of getting out of debt, I realized I had a lot of baggage still around money, because I was lifted from the actual numbers of debt, but I still had this lingering sense of deprivation or this lingering sense of scarcity, despite having more than I had now that I had no debt. And so I had to really go on a deeper journey of self-discovery, which I think is what intimacy is about. Discovery of self, and then how those things that we manage sometimes can manifest how we treat ourselves. Not to say that your net worth is your self-worth in the sense that how much money you have is what you're worth. No. What I'm saying is that your relationship with how you manage your money, is it one of self-sabotage? Is it one of healthy progression? And sometimes a little bit of both, depending on what stage you are in life. And that's, I'm not going to be one of those people who says, oh, I'm just completely over some of those things. But I'm conscious of it, and I'm committed to an intimacy so I can discover more about myself and then find ways to strengthen and lengthen those periods of goodness and shorten, those periods of self-sabotage. So that's when I think about intimacy. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, because you don't really hear those two words together. And then you had actually used a phrase that I really loved, and I shared that this afternoon on News 12, because you're about getting cozy with your money.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Like, think about that, like that, there's a whole mind shift. Because a lot of times when we think about money, there's a lot of stuff that comes up, sadly, in a negative way, So to get cozy with it, spend time with it, get intimate. Like, I really like that word. We know words are powerful. So you're totally shifting the context there alone, just in how you speak around your money, right? Yeah. So I thought that was pretty amazing. And then we're going to establish, as you said, structures. We need strategies. We've got to have structure in place, accountability. We always like to have a goal. We don't just like to chat it up and not actually leave with a strong goal. So we want to. The way you start your book, there was such an allowing, just something about, just as you said, just how important it is to be able to forgive yourself around money to really be able to move forward. So the goal is, by the end of this, is that you'll have a chance to think about, forgiving yourself for the past, and you have a clean slate to start again. We want to reduce the stress around money for you. We know this is a very difficult time for a lot of people, but if we can still give you the support to reduce the stress so you can really focus on where you want to go, create those, solidify it with some positive financial habits and a new, more, empowering financial identity. And then we always make sure that we leave everybody and leave everyone with some resources. So we're actually going to use the book to really drive this conversation today. Next slide, Larry. And we're going to unpack the financial past, because it starts there. We're already writing scripts by the time we're 2 to 7 years old in terms of what's already being modeled for us, right? Before we get into adulthood. And then we start to realize that there are certain stories, habits that just no longer serve us anymore. So you start off with some really deep questions here right off the bat, right? So the first question is, what role have your emotions played in your decision to, and that's the thing a lot of people don't realize, there's people who we tend to hear about the overspending. But we don't hear as much of, there's people who actually oversave. I guess we realize that the IQ, the financial IQ isn't the only thing that will determine your financial success. That your emotional IQ is, if not more powerful, because we know there's very intelligent people who lose all their money and are riddled with debt. So I guess, can you give a little bit of the lay of the land as to why you start here and how you came to, I guess, set it up where we're starting at the very beginning, going back to even childhood?
Yeah, I think that part of the work for me after I got out of debt was, and even like throughout my adulthood, just coming into my own and just thinking, like, what do I really think about these things? And what are some of the things I used to think? Or what were some of the roots of why I think the way I think? So I've always been a person that was also very metacognitive. Like, what do I think and why do I think that way? What do I think about my thinking? You know what I mean?
Wow. Say that again.
So like, what do I think about my thinking? So say, for example, today, it's like a simple example. I was thirsty and I wanted to get a iced latte. And so I was like, but Kara, you're trying to drink water for 30 days. And so I was like, I automatically went to something that I wanted or craved. Mm-hmm. And I was able to stop myself and I was able to say, Kara, you don't want a latte. You're thirsty. Drink water. And so I was able to stop myself because I've been thinking about the things that I'm doing to keep me from my goal of, say, clearer skin or no sugar or things like that. And so I would understand that like if I decide I'm gonna get into the car and go to, say, one of the places like a cafe or Starbucks or whatever to get that, along the way I'll say, well, what are you doing, Kara? Is this related to your goal? What are you really, like, what do you really want? And so, and I'll also ask, is this sabotaging yourself? So I would I would think about my thoughts. Like, I don't automatically say, of course I want an iced latte. I would say, well, what are you really thinking? So that's what I mean by metacognition. What you think about your thinking. And like, do you always believe your thoughts? I know I don't, because some of them don't keep me towards my goals, And so I'm becoming the woman that I want to be through the process of thinking and critiquing my thoughts without shame, but with an honest assessment of, is this really helping me? Is it keeping me as the woman as I am, or as the woman that I want to be? So when it comes to money, I have to, I had a lot of childhood trauma, I would say, around money because of my mom's relationship with my father, and then subsequently how she treated money as a result of how she was treated by my dad. And so she had a divorce is devastating, but they never even got divorced. It was just kind of lingering. I'm leaving. I'm supposed to come back. So a lot of things were unspoken. So even that creates even more like this kind of hidden trauma. And so the way she responded to it is she just kind of hoarded anything else that she could protect because she didn't want to get hurt again. So that's where money and over saving came. So even if she could afford it, it would be too expensive because she didn't want to take a risk. She wanted to hold on. And even just legitimately, she became the chief financial caregiver and breadwinner in one fell swoop. But she also was a nurse that had enough of a middle class income that she could, but it was the feeling around she was robbed of something. She was robbed of, before, you know, Bill Cosby and his issues, he was robbed of the Caribbean Huxtable experience. You know what I mean?
Right.
My dad was going to be a doctor. She was going to be a nurse, not a lawyer. But it was that kind of upward mobile African-American family. And she was robbed of it. And I think that played out in how she responded to most of the world. And for a lot of Black women, this story may render true in a lot of ways. And so as her daughter, her youngest, and the one that she wanted to prepare and protect against that, some of her beliefs around men, around money, around men and money, from intimacy and financial intimacy was definitely colored by that lens of scarcity, fear, risk aversion. So, you know, that leads people to behave with their money in certain ways. So when you go through that, when you're able to tap into, when you say go and do something with money, whether you deny yourself something or you indulge yourself in something, there's usually something behind that, or a story, or a story that you tell yourself about why you should or why you shouldn't, why it's okay and why it's not okay. And sometimes you definitely have to question that if you notice that a lot of those behaviors are keeping you in a position from being happy, and also just having strong finances. And I mean in the sense too, where for those that oversave, that you separate, you ruminate about money despite having more than enough. So clearly it's not the money, you know? And then for those of us who overspend, the delusion that you have more than enough is another issue that you may want to talk about. Like there's something there. So that's where emotions play, because they play a definite impact in the decision that you make.
And until you have the awareness, and that's why I love the way you've set up the book, because this is about really going in, being introspective, and like you, I'm a firm believer about putting pen to paper. Yeah. It's very cathartic. It's very therapeutic. So until you have the awareness, how can you change?
Right.
So I love this piece. We'll go to the next slide, Larry. So we're getting into the life work. So day 2 now was writing the beginning chapter of your money story. This was an amazing exercise for me, because by the time I was done, I saw the pattern. I was one of the things that stayed with me the most with regards to what was taught to me as a child was keep a roof over your head and pay your bills on time. That's what my mom told me. That was the extent of my financial literacy, right? So that's what I did. I didn't take a lot of risk with my money. I made sure I kept a roof over my head and paid my bills on time. But at the same time, I realized I would, get to college. They give you that, that first credit card. I did end up, I got the free t-shirt and I thought, okay, I racked it up. But I remember that first summer, I was actually working 3 jobs, paid it all down, But what I noticed was the yo-yo effect. By the time I was done the story, I could see I was very good at paying on time, and I'd pay it off, and then it goes back up, and then so this was really good for me, because then you see the cycle. Okay, so now what can I do to break the cycle before I get there?
Yep.
Right. So I thought this was a very powerful exercise.
And I think that I know. So part of this work right here is really being able to separate your childhood self from your adult self, because ultimately, if we don't really rethink and reclaim our money story as our own, we'll be reliving or living the money stories of our parents or our culture or whatever it is, or our religion or our gender. And so I think that's the biggest piece, is sometimes you have to stop back and think, like, who is actually controlling my finances now? And for a long time, my mom's money story was in every aspect of my finances, even to the point of creating that same level of fear and scarcity, despite me not being a single mom with 2 kids. I was single and probably making more money at my age, more than my mom had made with 2 children at that time. But I had this sense of, I had a middle-aged woman's divorce, or, you know, separated woman's financial approach. And so I was like, well, wait a second, how can I free myself from thinking like that? And so you have to decide, inherently, not all money stories have a story. So your mom's money story is saying, take care of the bare minimum, but you may have to rewrite that story to say, but there's more to my money than just paying my bills and having a roof over my head. That's just the surface. It could be, and so it seemed like the rest of the money could be used for other things that was around spending, but not necessarily building wealth. So you can tweak the money story. And I think for those of us on the call, it's important for you guys to stop and say, maybe thinking about when you actually, for some people, it's a very vivid, very visceral experience to actually do something financially. And then they may actually see themselves as their previous selves. Like, you may see yourself as a small child, maybe being reprimanded by your parent, or you may see you and your mom being, or dad, having an argument when something happens. So you may be having outer body experiences when you're with a financial transaction without even realizing it, and kind of bring yourself back to that time in your life. But what I encourage is for you to acknowledge that these memories, the earliest and the most vivid, because sometimes they're not the same, that impact all of your decisions, because oftentimes you make a straight line saying, this is the truth about money, or this is the truth about life, or this is the truth about fill in the blank, about being a Black woman, or about men. And so I can lead with an example. One of my earliest money memories, and my most vivid also, was when my mom was going, I think I shared in the book, my mom was, we went to a store for like shoes, for sneakers for back to school, and I was like 7 or 8. And I remember, I knew I couldn't go to the side of the store where there were the name brand sneakers. So I knew that we were just going to the bucket, and I just had to be happy. And there was a part of me that wanted to please my mom, to say, look, Mom, I don't want those things. I'm a good girl, right? And so I remember that deprivation, or kind of saying that you don't want something when you may want something. Deprivation was some type of nobility. It will help other people feel good. And then the end of that story ends up with me taking the shoes that I might have liked or just might have settled for. And it's not the shoes itself, it's like what these things mean. And so I remember being 7, going to the cashier, and my mom, and then bringing up the amount of money, and my mom's face looking so sad. And I remember saying out loud, because I'm 7, and I'm just like, I'm like, Mom, you look so sad when you spend money. And then all the people in the checkout line start laughing. And I'm like, can y'all mind your business? Because I'm trying to have a tender moment with my mom here. But I remember her taking looking at the screen, looking at her money, like clenching it. It was like the last bill that she had, and handing it over. And me feeling so bad that even when I denied myself something that I wanted, it still wasn't enough to kind of make her happy. So in that moment, I said to myself, oh no, spending makes people sad, so I should avoid it. And I remember, and like, I'm like, 40 now, and I remember that very distinctly. And so, and then if I deprive myself, it'll make me kind of like be like a good girl, right? Like my mom will make my mom happy. And so, and also kind of like other things, like it's my responsibility to make adults happy, or like people around me happy. That's another thing that comes out of that. So I encourage you guys to think about what was the most, and there were other stories too that are on the other side, where my mom will always, she sent me to Paris, and she sent me to Europe when I was young, and also sent me to the Caribbean to show me other examples of life, and that travel was important, education was important. So it's just not one of the more traumatic memories. That's why you have mixed memories. That's why you have to sort through them all, because if it were all kind of just a hot mess, I wouldn't be here, or I would have a different story. But my mom stressed education, especially as a Black woman. She stressed social mobility. She stressed entrepreneurship. She hustled. Like she had, like she said, like in addition to me, like being a Mickey Mouse character. My mom had, she had friends come over, and we would always go down to the wholesale district and get things on wholesale, and then we would sell them in the house. So I saw lots of her just trying to hustle. So I had a range of experiences, but some of them impacted me more than others, but I took them all, you know, so that's why I have all these degrees, you know what I mean? But also at one point I would deprive myself of even basic things. Like I would haggle over for myself, kind of exasperate myself over a 20-cent difference in like lotion at CVS, because I was like, so it was just these kinds of things that you had to figure out, you know? So I encourage you guys, as you're listening, to think about those things, because especially now that we're in this very much highlighted world where we're seeing the intersection of race and economics, and how often these stories come from a place, our economics come also from individual stories, the microeconomics, you know? So these stories of deprivation, or having to choose one thing over the other, you know, having to pay one bill so you can maybe eat, but you can't, you know, you may have to walk because you can't get transportation. Those are the things that intersect and create our money stories, you guys. And especially as Black people, many of us are Black on this call, or even people of color, or even immigrant stories, which you often leave, not because you want to, but because you have to in order to, you know, make better opportunities for yourself. Those are the kind of things that play into your feelings and, you know, your deepest emotions and just visceral experiences with money. And that you have to stop and rethink that. Number one, I'm not 7 anymore. Number 2, I'm not back home anymore. You know, like if you're first generation American, you have to think that if you maybe like you're in a relationship that had these beliefs around women and money, I'm no longer in that relationship. And so what do I want to believe about money? And start to create memories that support that. And so, for example, I started to create new memories. I said, you know what, Kara? I know, and it's little things. Like I wanted to be able to experience abundance. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get myself a pair of diamond earrings. And so for me, the first start was I found a pair of diamond earrings that were like, say, $25. But I said, they're diamonds. I got it. Do you know what I mean? Because I always told myself I couldn't have it. I said I wanted to try pate because I used to watch Frasier a lot, you know, and I took the opportunity to. I started to tell myself, what do I want to experience? How can I afford it? Instead of just saying these things that wouldn't allow me to. And so for those of us that on the flip side that overspend, what is like, thinking about what feeling do I want to feel? Because sometimes it's not the shopping or the consumption, it's a feeling. Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling neglected? Am I feeling bored? Am I feeling overwhelmed?
A lot of people will spend out of boredom.
Yeah.
Online, right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, but the life workers, this is a really powerful thing, because remember that your money story is something that is really passed down to you because you inherit it from your parents or from your society. And there are layers of it within the African American community that we have to layer on about our ability to be worthy, or our ability to, you know, just be maybe over consumers, or the only thing we're good at is entertaining, or kind of like those extroverted non-science or mathematics or whatever kind of activities. You have that layer, and then you have the layer of what your parents taught you. So there's sometimes, and if you're a woman, other things, there are other layers to pass down. And so you have to decide, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And like I said, create those, create all those new memories. And so I started to really think about, well, what kind of experience do I want to have? You know, and I started to create them in small ways. I would want to travel. I would, and I also invested in therapy too, just to kind of, because what was happening was that.
And thank you for that. You know, thank you for that. That's important to share with everyone too, you know?
Yeah.
You got additional support.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I was like, well, what do I want? Like, I want to be happy. I wanted not to have issues with men. And the way it was going, if I didn't address some of the issues my mom had kind of not, she was protecting me. So I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for that, but it wasn't helpful ultimately, because I would bring those same kind of issues that weren't really mine, because I was like 20 something. I don't have those issues into a relationship, into my marriage. And I saw that it was happening. So I made sure I had therapy for as long as I needed to. And so that's where my money went. You know what I mean? So I never said, oh, I can't afford therapy. I was like, well, if I want to be happy and I don't want to have these issues, and I want to be able to connect with somebody, and I don't want to be able to deprive myself, if I don't want to feel guilty about, you know, whatever it is, if I want to be my own woman, then I had to put my money towards my healing.
And that's an investment. And then the return on that investment is invaluable, right? And that's, again, just a shift. It's not, I'm not just spending money on myself. It's about investing in myself. So amazing. Thank you. I mean, we're getting some great feedback here in the chat. Let's go into day 3. We're only on day 3, people. Larry, next slide. So this is a very powerful exercise, giving your money a name and a voice.
Yeah.
Can you share that a little bit about this exercise with the people?
Yeah, because like I said at the beginning, that money is all parts of our lives. And we live also in a society where we're all driven some way by either this, like, I don't want to be poor, or my job, you know, there's always this sense of I have to accumulate a lot and have to be able to protect myself. And sometimes when it comes to taking that information and making it useful towards your personal development, it's to personify it. And so I wrote in this piece, and also it's important because when it comes to money, if you were to think about money as a friend, and your friend talking behind your back, they usually say things that may hurt you, but may have a grain of truth. And in this case,
give you that raw honesty, right?
That honesty, right. And
I like the fact you're taking yourself out of this a little bit, right? That's what I do like about this exercise.
Yeah.
So third person perspective.
Exactly. And sometimes we don't think about our money as like this other person, but if you were even to, if it had the chance to have a voice, you would hear a lot of things, because the fact that you would nickname it as certain things, you know that's how you're treating it. We never took the time to actually own it. And so in this case, you guys, like, if you want to just even, you know, take this as an activity really quickly, like, if money were a friend, what would they say behind your back? Like, you know, or what nickname would they give you? And the goal is ultimately that the nickname will change over the course of time. Because I can say that the Kara, my friend, my money as my friend, let's call her Dionne. Like, Dionne be like, I don't know, she too tight with money. Do you know what I mean? Like, she always thinking about it, and she says she wants to do stuff, but then we're here to do it. She said that she took us, like, she had like 3 extra jobs to get it, but then all she does is put us in the bank, and she's not even doing it. We're not even growing because we're not even invested. And then, you know, so I would call her Scaredy Cat, Scares Kara, you know, as a nickname, or Deprivation Debbie, or something like that.
Yes.
So, you know, so just to kind of be like, wow, those are the reoccurring patterns that you have with money. And to hear someone else, from the perspective of someone else say that, it can hurt your feelings, but it's true, because you're the one that's saying it. You're just personifying because you know it's true.
Right. And then when you do that, I feel like then you make light of it, because again, we tend to get very heavy around money. And when you do this, there's a levity. You can almost laugh at it a little bit. Yeah. And then it's like there's a little more of a, I don't know if it's fun, but it's just, there's a little more of a lightness around it. So you can kind of laugh at yourself a little bit, recognize it, and then again, choose to do something different, right? Choose to do something new, create something new. So I really like this.
Yeah.
We're going to start blowing through, because I would love to touch on at least each one of them. Yeah. Let's go to day 4, Larry. So day 4 life's work is create a family financial tree. This is interesting. Now, this is, I think, going back to a lot of what you just spoke about from a genealogy perspective. So here you actually said to jot down at least 10 spoken and unspoken messages. There's also, because we know how much of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting exercise. How did you come up with this?
Well, I just thought that if you want to get to the root of where you come from, you need to know what were the messages and to what extent you're a mixture of all those things. So when I was going through this process of trying to really deepen my relationship, heal my relationship with money, I had to think about, well, who were the various people that influenced me and to what extent did I listen to maybe one person more than others? And my primary influence was my mom to a large degree. But I had some other remnants of consistent messages that I also internalized from my other family members. And so it was helpful just to be able to see it in writing. And it's a quick jot. Like you can think about if it's not the people that are the most influential to you. So it may be your mom, but it may be a teacher or a coach or just someone or a friend that you constantly heard them saying that. And for a lot of us that grew up in hip hop, that may be also a person in your life because it's such a very we're so immersed in it, and the messages are very, very clear about certain things when it comes to money. And you may definitely be driven by some of those messages. And I think it's important to think about the unspoken ones too, because sometimes because money is very heavy, people may not outwardly say it, but they show it through, for example, my mom was a very glamorous woman, Monday through Friday, sweet smelling, you know what I mean? Just beautiful. But then when it came to paying the bills, like she had on an ugly house coat, and I think her glasses were crooked, and the table looked a mess. And that's visceral, it was an ugly thing.
And that's her date with her money, right? Because if you're going to sit down and spend time with your money, that's how you're showing up, kind of disheveled, right?
Mm-hmm. So it gives you a feel that, like it creates stress. Like she seemed stressed. She seemed overwhelmed. When Monday through Friday, that was never the case. So you may notice that people might not have said something, but they said it through their actions.
Right. I will say growing up, I used to love to watch my mom get dressed. So the fashion, I worked in fashion for 20 years. So I know that's where the inspiration came from very young, when she was getting ready to go out to the disco or what have you. And most of the women in my family love to get dressed to the nines.
Yes.
That's where I know I saw where money typically went, was on the outer stuff, clothing, shoes, accessories. And they love to sale. So I love a good sale till this day. I worked in women's luxury fashion for about 15 years, but I still love a deal, right? Then I looked at my brother. I remember when we used to, because I grew up in Canada, we would come to New York for these shopping trips, right? Come to New York to shop. I mean, I would spend my money in no time buying deals, $5 dresses. Oh my gosh, right? But then my brother, it was interesting. He would go the entire weekend, go shop to shop, look around. He hadn't spent a dime yet on the last day. And then he would buy maybe one or two things, but he's investing in quality. He'll get the Polo Ralph Lauren. That's what was going on at the time. Or, you know what I mean? So different. But I watched how he used to spend. Very different mentality. So it wasn't always verbal, like you said, sometimes just watching behaviors.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Let's go to day 5. So code and categorize your money messages. So this was a great, and you touched on a bit of this before, that there's so many things intersecting from socioeconomic to religious to gender, so many different biases. This was a great exercise for me.
Yeah, I think that it's just important for you to see, if it's neutral, if it's negative or positive, and for you to be able to kind of see on a high level, what mostly do you feel those messages were? And sometimes you may be surprised when you think about it that, well, maybe most of them were positive, I just wasn't paying attention, or I took most of them were positive from this factor, but I paid more attention to that one, and so you can get a little bit more discerning about moving forward what you'll do.
And that's a key word there, having discernment, right? Sifting through, picking what works and what's not working. Love it. Let's jump. I think now we're gonna skip the middle. We're just kind of giving you a taste today, but it's definitely worth going through the entire process. And I love the way you've structured, because you make it really simple, so you'll want to continue. Day 25. This is a powerful moment now. It's like, okay, a little along the lines of what you were saying with regards to your mom, you know, if you're going to now start spending time with your money, the space should be conducive, right? So creating a beautiful money space, somewhere that's dedicated to you working on your money.
Right. And creating it, making it positive and showing up with the intention to be positive is an important part of really healing that relationship or creating or deepening that relationship. Because you feel like you have more control, you have more of a connection, because sometimes our money is over here and our life is over here. But what you're trying to do is create a safe space for you to kind of engage with it and kind of discover more about yourself in relation to your money, discover like what your past patterns have been for the month or even for the week. And I think doing that, and also the psychology of home shows that, you know, when you have a place that's decluttered, that's clean, that's organized, it boosts creativity, it boosts a sense of organization within. So you're more than likely to have a positive outcome or stick with something if you find it to be a challenge.
Right. So having a pleasant setting, pleasant atmosphere. I mean, energy plays a part. If your space is cluttered, that actually drains energy. It can actually drain energy from what you're trying to do. So it's like a simple exercise, but again, you know, lots of impact. We'll jump to day 26. Create invitation only statements. So I'm all about the affirmations. Talk a little bit about this, because you're very clear on how you should set these up.
Well, I think that when a lot of times our self-talk is the cause for our success and the cause for our destruction in a lot of ways. And so when it comes to affirmations, there's lots of controversy about, oh, it's not really real because it hasn't happened. But you can start by saying that I am, because you are in the process of, you have the intention to, and you want to add the emotion behind it because it makes it that much real. And there's so many studies too in terms of the mind-body connection that they were saying that athletes who visualize and kind of repeat mantras to themselves about their success or about their performance actually in the body are actually experiencing that. And so this isn't a lot of, woo-woo. There's like science behind positivity. It was even this other study I think it was in Japan or some country in Asia, but they were studying how talking nicely to a plant can make it grow versus being very mean and saying nasty things to a plant can actually make it die, with that being the only variable in the position, the lighting, and the other types of things that you nurture. And when you think about kids too, kids die from a failure to thrive when all you do is feed them and clothe them. They need the touch and the connection. And what you're doing here is creating that intimacy and that connection with yourself, your emotion. You're bringing your whole self to the woman that you want to be when it comes to your money. So I'm very much an advocate. And even like this, when I was talking about the iced coffee, like I didn't have an affirmation, but the idea was like, Carrie, you're not hungry. You know what you want, like, and kind of understanding, talking yourself through it. So it wasn't necessarily an affirmation, but the energy was there. Like, you know, this is something that you really, you're thirsty. You know that you can get something else. You know that you don't need that. You know, you are complete. You do not, this is not a treat. Like I was able to create those things for myself. And for you, on the call is just thinking, start with something that may not feel too out of there that you won't believe. You know, you can say, I am in the process of reconnecting with my money, right? And that's believable, right? I'm in the process of, I am open to receiving more support around money. I am open to ushering in new beliefs around money. Like those are very simple things. And then once you master that, you can have an affirmation that's a little bit outside of that comfort zone. So you can begin to believe it even more.
Yes. I mean, I heard willingness, just being willing. I am willing. I am open. And going back to the science, your brain doesn't know the difference.
Right.
You're already telling yourself, I am building wealth and it's fun. I have fun building wealth. I am having fun building wealth.
Right.
Just repeating that over and over again, your brain really doesn't know the difference. And if just the word fun now is going to create the good toxins in your body when you think about money now, because you say fun, it doesn't know the difference, and eventually you'll catch up.
Agreed.
You know, so I think this is amazing. Day 27. I really enjoyed this. And it's funny how once you mentioned it, once I worked on this journal entry, I guess going back to my coaching, so the reticular activation system, right? So once now that you're looking for the effortlessly free money, or you're aware of it now,
you start seeing it.
All of a sudden it starts popping up.
Boom, boom, boom.
I have this credit card. For how long now? 2 years? I have rewards on it. $50. Yep. Never paid attention. All of a sudden it jumped out at me.
I love it.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I do a prayer and a happy dance. That's what I do.
Yay! I love it. Yeah, I just think that we need to have more fun, and we need to celebrate in the ways that make us feel good to keep going, because everyone makes money so very serious and so very kind of, without saying, it's not masculine, but it's just kind of lacking a softness to it that's important for a lot of people to find themselves in that community. You know, because if you can't find a edge in, if you can't soul clap, if you can't pay it forward, if you can't pray or do any like that and bring yourself to your money, then that's why you're always going to be separate from your money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually, just today, it was actually really cool. Someone reached out. So I'm doing a little jewelry collab. But that was free money. Like just today I did that because I'm shopping, but I have to spend my own money.
Right.
So that just happened today.
Love it.
So I did my prayer and my happy dance. It works, people.
Yes.
Just create the atmosphere of abundance and gratitude. It's powerful. And it has a rippling effect. Yeah. Day 28. Oh my gosh. I'm hoping to get some questions in here of 2 minutes.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. This is it. This is the crux of it.
Yep.
Just deciding you are enough.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard.
Yeah. Once you really realize that you're enough, how that'll change how you view, act, and spend, invest around your money.
On both sides. For the overspender, it's like, I have enough in my house. I don't need to get another thing, because that thing is not going to add any, say, status or happiness, or make me more beautiful, or make me sexier, or make me stand out more at work necessarily. Like, who I am and what I have is enough. Mm-hmm. And for the over saver, you don't need the extra $20, do you know what I mean, to save it. Use it maybe to buy more time. Use it to so you can spend more time with your family. And you don't have to pursue money from a place of scarcity, because if it's never enough, it's never going to be enough. Right. So you have to decide that I meet my needs, I have my needs met, and I have a lot of my wants met. I don't have to worry. And that's where that enoughness comes for the oversavers, who are just thinking about their next dollar when they haven't even spent the $20,000, $50,000 that they already have. You know what I mean? So finding ways to replace that desire for more money may be really a desire to replace it with more meaning, more connection, more fun. So maybe you need to spend some, so I think it's really important on both sides to figure out what enough looks like for you.
Wow. Thank you, Cara. We did it.
Yay!
We're right on 7 o'clock. I realize, it's 7. But is there anyone that has questions? This was supposed to have a Q&A component.
I don't mind if you have questions. I'm fine with that if everyone wants to ask me questions.
Anybody have? You can raise your hand. Larry will unmute you if there's anyone, or you can put it in the chat. I just want to make sure we give you that opportunity. Cara's willing to stay with us a few more minutes.
Okay, we have one.
We have one?
We have one.
Okay, wonderful.
Go for it.
Oh, hi. Thank you. This was great. I'm going to buy your book. But I wanted to know, did you is there a book you can recommend?
What's your name, by the way?
About the was it
Aliyah.
Hi, Aliyah.
Um, hi. I would love to get some more information about that because I'm not automatically like that, but I like to read about it and try to become like that.
Oh, to think about your thinking?
Yes.
I don't know off the top of my head, to be quite honest. But what I can do is if I come across it, because a lot of it is just a practice of kind of stopping what you're thinking. And I think the book will actually help you just stop and think about your thinking. So, I'll think about it. But I'll send Dionne any resources if I come across it. But it was just a practice that I've grown to do. And also as a teacher, I have to teach my kids to think about their thinking. So that was just something I taught and I learned as a pedagogical strategy that I applied to my life.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I'll Google it as well.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
We had a
Thank you, Aaliyah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Leah. We had a question quickly if there was an opportunity to run through the book as a group, like a daily exercise. I feel like we've kind of done that, but I'm guessing that what they mean is to do it in more detail, specifically with the book. But I'm not sure if that's the right question.
Well, Cara does offer group coaching. If that would be an option, I'll let you take it from there, Cara.
Yeah, so what the group coaching will be something similar to this, like kind of going day by day through this, and also talking about the other blocks that come with it. So, all the different things that we do and talk about self-sabotage, the group coaching would be around kind of going through each of the things that we often do, our favorite way to make ourselves crazy. You pick your crazy, your mental cognitive distortions around your whole life, and specifically how they impact your money. So I'll leave Dionne the link with that so you guys can have some next steps if you wanted to connect with me and go a little bit more deeply into the book.
Well, we'll see. Let's just pop back to the slide just before this one, Larry. So if you want to take a picture, this is how you can stay connected to Cara on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and her website, frugalfeminista.com. You have to be able to find her at this point. There's no excuse. I think we have another question here. From Tiffany, she says, what do you suggest for folks who are trying to purchase property in New York? Should we keep saving? How do we not get trapped into over-saving, if that's even a thing when it comes to a down payment requirement?
Well, the over-saving, so I just want to separate the two. The over-saving is for a person that, say you've met the goal of, say your down payment is, say, 20% and the property is $100,000. You've saved close to the actual cost of your home, but you have yet to pull the trigger to actually purchase or do anything about it, right? So it's the saving for saving's sake that we're talking about. So just want to separate that from the mentality of someone that if you're trying to save for a down payment, then all things moving towards you getting more money for the down payment makes sense. That doesn't fully deprive you of fun and kind of keeps you off that kind of takes you away from following and pursuing that goal of getting a down payment. So just want to separate that saving is good if it's towards a goal, but saving for saving's sake and not actually doing anything with the money, not investing it, not spending it, not doing anything with it, but just the idea of having that much money and saving it is where you begin to think about over saving as something that's keeping you from having a healthier relationship with money.
And then we have one more, and this is from Teresa. She said, how does Cara recommend someone get through the process of asking for more money from their current job position?
You mean current as in like during the pandemic or just in general? I'm just assuming just in general because these are specific situations. But what I do is I talk about the value added to the organization, and I keep a dossier or a track record of what your contribution to an organization or to a team has translated into a bottom line impact. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a measure of money, but that'd be great if that's like you maybe saved money or made the company money, but also could have increased team retention or increased levels of diversity and inclusion. You can talk about maybe the items that you've spearheaded that has somehow improved corporate or organizational systems and structures. So anything that you have done to improve the system, but also doing your research. There's sites like Glassdoor, I believe, Glass Ceiling, I forgot the actual name, but just Googling the salary finders so you can see comparably how much what the range is for that position. And sometimes you have to change the name of the position. So say you're doing something like Dionne, like you're a fashion, you're a life coach, but sometimes it may not necessarily come in the form of life coach. You may have to play with the words because they're different. They're similar positions with different names. So it could be mentor, a mentor coach, or a master coach, or executive coach, or something like that. So look at what those various names are. Look at the descriptions of what they do in terms of their deliverables, and then so you can get a range of where you can possibly start doing the asking price. And just as a side note, I think it's illegal in several states. I can't think of all the ones that aren't, for people to ask about your salary history, so you don't get pegged by how much you used to make. So don't make that mistake of saying, well, I used to make this in my previous job, so I want to have 10% or 20% more from that. You want to look at what the new job is offering, the numbers around it, and then aim for the higher end of it, like 75% the highest, beginning for negotiation. Well, I would say even higher than that, but just thinking about how you match up in terms of the job descriptions, and what you actually delivered on being able to position yourself to be a valuable asset to your organization.
Great answer. I think you got all you need there, Teresa. Go get it. Anything else? Anybody else? Well, if there's going once, going twice, if there's no other questions, I just want to say how much I appreciated this conversation today. Going through the book has been transformational for me. Like I said, there's quite a few of us on the call that went through it together, and it just so much came up, and it was a really, really great experience. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for putting this out into the world. And like I said, now more than ever, we need this. So I do hope everyone will find a way to stay in touch with her, because she's a wealth of information, and you can see you truly care. There's a care, a genuine care for everyone who you can see wants to do something great with their life and around their money. So thank you so much. Any parting words for the audience?
I would just say be gentle with yourself as you go through this process, and if you decide to actually go through the book, just make sure that you do all the activities. Like, the reason it's structured that way is for a reason. So I would prefer that you go first through knowing yourself financially, and then moving towards finally being able to have structure, so you're able to strengthen your financial identity throughout the process.
Thank you. Awesome. Larry, if you don't mind going to the last slide. I also want to make sure you stay in touch with me. This is the finale, like I mentioned. We had a lot of new people on this one, but there's a lot of people who have become family throughout the entire series. So it's bittersweet, but it was a beautiful experience to do this at a time where we needed support. We needed to find ways to still engage and connect. I want to say thank you to the Borough president for opening up this platform to the community, and really finding ways to be creative to stay connected. So definitely follow me. You can follow me at Dionne Nicholls. You can also follow me at Live Your Best Life for You. Check out my website for events that'll be coming up. But just want to say appreciate you all, and Godspeed. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you, Cara.
You're very welcome.
Bye.